This is Muriro on Monday on Star FM. Muriro on Monday. Brace yourself. It's a hard hat area.
Good evening, Zimbabwe. This is Star FM, your number one station. I'm Folake. I'm standing in for Linda Muriro on this beautiful Monday night. Whether you're winding down after a long day, Padawa, Kamira, traffic has gotten you stuck, thank you for tuning in, and I hope your day has been filled with promise and certainly some positivity. Tonight on Muriro on Monday, we're stepping into an urgent and yet important conversation. A topic that goes beyond borders and touches the heart of who we are as a nation. Trans-Frontier Conservation Areas, also known as TFCAs in short. I want you to picture this. Think of vast savanna that's stretching from Zimbabwe all the way to Zambia. Think about the mighty Zambezi that's flowing, full of life, and communities that are standing together to protect their rich heritage. Recently, you might know this, leaders from across Southern Africa were gathered right here in Zimbabwe to discuss these precious ecosystems. And we are here tonight to unpack why it matters, not just for wildlife, but for all of us. Imagine a world where our wildlife is thriving, where our natural landscapes are shared and cared for by neighboring countries. I think this is more than just a dream at this point. It's a vision that these conservation areas strive to achieve. Can you imagine across the world there are over 220 TFCAs, with 13 being right here within our SADC region? These areas are representative and are a perfect picture of a collaborative effort that goes as far back as 1930. And this was in an effort to connect and improve ecosystems that are necessary both for conservation and community welfare. So why does this matter today on a night like this particularly? Right now, as our economy is dealing with various challenges, the wildlife sector stands maybe even as a beacon of hope. It's becoming increasingly clear that by protecting our natural heritage, we can also empower our communities and possibly even boost our GDP. Tonight, we want to dive a little bit deeper into this conversation. I have two incredible guests that are joining us. Tinashe Farawo, he is the voice, the spokesperson of Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority, ZimParks for short. We have Lisa Chitura. She is an environmental education and awareness programs officer. She works with Wildlife Conservation Action. As we are also joining Tinashe and Lisa, you two can also be a part of the discussion. Possibly as you're listening in, I'm also throwing questions at you. How exactly do you think wildlife management can actually translate into economic gains for you? Do you think there are strategies that are being initiated to protect our natural heritage? As always, number Star FM. You also can send in messages to our number. Tinashe, good evening, welcome. Let's dive into Farawo. So let's start off. If you can, Farawo, can you give us an overview of some of the key takeaways from the recently ended SADC Transboundary Conservation Conference?
Thank you very much. I think, as you are aware, that as a country we hosted the inaugural SADC TFCA conference last month from the 19th to 23rd of May 2025. I think the summit emphasized on regional collaboration in managing the shared natural resource. This includes sharing best practices in wildlife conservation and ecosystem management. Reference was made to the SADC strategies in place, which include the SADC TFCA program 2023 to 2033. The SADC Law Enforcement and Anti-Poaching Strategy 2022 to 2032, amongst many others. The summit reinforced the need for involving local communities in conservation efforts. There was a strong focus on protecting biodiversity, particularly transboundary areas. Zimbabwe pledged to strengthen its efforts in protecting endangered species and habitats through improved law enforcement and monitoring. We also focused on climate resilience. Discussions included strategies for building resilience against climate change impacts on ecosystems. Because on average, if you take recordings of the rainfall patterns, maybe over a 50-year period, you'd see that there's been a drop in terms of the amount of rainfall that we receive every year. As SADC member states, we also made commitments to align the national policies within SADC and TFCA frameworks to enhance regional cooperation and conservation effectiveness. The member states also committed to increase financial investments in conservation projects, focusing on sustainable practices that generate economic benefits for our communities and for the member states. There was also a commitment to improve training, capacity building programs for local conservation practitioners and community members to better manage our natural resources. Overall, as a country, the SADC TFCA conference also reflected a comprehensive approach to conservation that prioritizes regional cooperation, community involvement, and sustainable practices. And we, as the world leader in sustainable management, I think generally that's what we were focusing on. Issues of economic development, issues of tourism, collaboration, regional integration as SADC. I think generally these are some of the key takeaways from the conference that we had last month.
All right. So from us as a country, how is all this fitting in? Training for the community, regional cooperation, ecotourism, how is this fitting into our broader conservation strategy as a country?
I think we were celebrating 25 years of this regional collaboration since 1999, when the TFCA was started. We as a country, we are part to at least 6 TFCAs. The biggest one being the Kavango Zambezi, where the 5 countries converge, namely Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Angola. The 5 countries converge on the banks of Kavango River and Zambezi River. So how then we as a country participates or benefits from this Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, which is the biggest, by the way. It's the biggest transfrontier conservation probably in the world. This is where we have the biggest concentration of elephants in the world. It's 520,000 square kilometers. The Zimbabwean component of that Kaza TFCA is the Wangema Tetsi block, getting into Zambezi National Park in Victoria Falls, in some parts of Chizarira, in Gokwe and Binga there. And at the apex, and how these things function, for example, in our case as the Wildlife Management Authorities, we have a committee where we participate at our level. And then that committee goes up where we have the permanent secretaries, which we normally call the senior officials of these TFCAs. And then we have the ministers responsible for environment or tourism, depending with the country. I think we are also unique in a way where we have 2 ministries dealing with environment and tourism. In other countries, just Ministry of Environment and Tourism, which touches both departments. But as a country, since we are collaborating with other countries, in Kaza, for example, not only Kaza, I've mentioned the 6 TFCs that we have. Maybe it would be good for the listeners to know some of these TFCs. We have the Kavango Zambezi that I've mentioned. We have the second one, the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Conservation Area, where we have the Gonarejo National Park on the Zimbabwean side, and then the Kruger National Park on the South African side, and Limpopo National Park on the Mozambican side. We have also the Greater Mapungubwe Transfrontier Conservation Area, where we have the Zimbabwean component, where we have Tuli, a safari area in Matabeleland South, and then Mapungubwe is itself a World Heritage Site in South Africa, and then Botswana. We have Zimoza, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, as the word explains, and we have also the Chimaniman TFCA, and I think those are the 6 that we have. But what we then do in terms of benefit, in terms of collaborating with our neighboring countries, we have issues like joint patrols. We do joint patrols in fighting poaching, so we patrol together with our sister republics, wildlife rangers on the other side. If it is Moza, if it is Kaza, we do the same thing. We also do a lot of information sharing in data in terms of research. For the first time in the history of these TFCAs, I think 2 years ago, it should be 2022, 2023, we had the first Kaza aerial survey to see how many animals, how many elephants do we have. So we jointly did it together simultaneously for the first time, because we used to do these things independently. Zimbabwe does its own, Botswana does its own, but for the first time we did an aerial survey for both the landscapes in the 5 countries. And then also we also share issues of human wildlife conflict, and then among other things. So we collaborate because our animals know no boundary. We normally joke around and say they can have breakfast in Zimbabwe, lunch in Botswana, and dinner in Namibia. Although because the animals do not know the political boundaries that were imposed on us.
It's Star FM sounded good all the time. We're discussing this evening a very pertinent discussion. I'm sure you might have heard of the conference that happened hosting the 25th edition yakatika muno Zimbabwe kupera kwa May uno. Tirikuda kuhwisisa manerano kuti zvakakosherei tive tichihwisisa iwo ma-transboundary conservation area ariko iwawawa. Tatohwa kuti isusu tine anosvika manomwe matanatu muno muZimbabwe tichibatanidza nedzimwe nyika vana Zimoza ana Kaza ana Kavango Zambezi vachitagwa nezvavo Kaza is Kavango Zambezi namamwe wakangosiyana siyana. And as we're continuing with our discussion, I want to find out from you, as you are listening in, what does wildlife mean to you? Do you have a favorite animal or place in nature that you feel connected to? And have you recently visited our national park or wildlife reserve? What has been your experience? 0719 100 404. Did it change the way you perceive conservation in any way? Sorry, I've just given you Capital's number. The number for you to get in touch is 0772 162 651. Tataka terera Farawo varubva ku ZimParks nova iwi runomirira Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority vachitivonesa kuti iko zvinosenyika kwatakabva, why the SADC Transboundary Conservation Conference was important, how it's fitting into our broader strategies. Apa vava vachitivonesa kuti isu seZimbabwe dzimwe nyika dzatiri kubatana nadzo vana Mozambique, mavawa Namibia, Botswana varimwe imomumu. But Farawo, in all the things that you've listed, we are happy to note that there are certainly positives, but I'd also imagine that there may be challenges that come through trying to address, sezvamamshatarati vana samanyanga zhowidzi hadzina mapassport, hadzizivi zvamavisa, kwadziri kungofamba dzichingoenda. So what are some of the challenges you may be experiencing within this cross-border relationship you've established with other countries, and how have you been addressing them together?
Thank you very much. I think before I get into that, let me just talk about the other very critical benefit of these TFCAs, tourism development. If you look at what we are trying to do with the Kaza Univisa project, where a tourist can easily, if a tourist gets a visa, he or she can get into Zambia, Botswana, Namibia. It also we are also doing the same thing in the Southeast Lowveld, where we are saying a tourist can easily get into Kruger, Gonarejo, Limpopo National Park without many hassles, where immigration is there. Everyone
translates to something meaningful to you. It's 7 o'clock. It's time for the news.
This is Muriro on Monday on Star FM. Muriro on Monday. Brace yourself. It's a hard hat area.
Manero Kanaka, welcome to Star FM, sounding good all the time. This is Folake. I'm sitting in for Linda Muriro, who would normally would be with you on Muriro on Monday. If you have just joined us, looking at the transboundary conservation areas known as TFCAs in short, and looking at how they're impacting our environment. We've already heard from Tinashe Farawo of ZimParks. We're also going to be talking to Lisa Chitura a little bit later from Wildlife Conservation Action, as they're giving us insights into wildlife management. I want to hear from you. You can also participate 0772 162 651. 086-522-3251. Ndachikubvunza kuti wewe, when you think about wildlife, how important is it to you? And when you are, when was the last time you visited a national game park? 0719-100-404. Tisataenda kunawo vafara vachitironedzera zvimwe zvigozhero zvavari kusangana nazvo pamusaka pekubatana maoko nehama dzedu dzingava dziri kuMozambique, Botswana, Kenya, Angola, Namibia, Zambia, Mozambique, dzakangosiyana-siyana maerano nekuti tibetseredze mhuka dzedu dzinenge dzichifamba dzichibva kuno Zimbabwe dzichindawo kwadzingaenda, nokuti dzadzizivi dzapinda muBotswana kana kuti pai idzo dziri kungofamba. Vanga vachitionesa ivo vakati chimwe chezvigozhero chavanosangana nazvo ndezvekuti mitemo ibatane iringane. Takatarira zvatinoona isusu muZimbabwe sezvakatikoshera nezvingakoshera vanhu vekuMozambique. Farawo, if you may just continue from that point on, highlighting some of the challenges that may exist between trying to be on the same page, aligning our strategies as far as these cross-border initiatives are concerned.
Okay, thank you very much, Folake. The harmonization of laws that govern wildlife is very important, and it has been a challenge. That's number one. Number two, the issues of resources. I think, understandably, government has other socio-economic needs which needs to be addressed. And in most cases, wildlife becomes an afterthought. But conservation is an expensive business. It needs resources. It needs money. I can give you an example of the patrols that our rangers go through. If they go on an extended patrol of, say, 21 days in the bush, obviously they need, some things that we think they're basic, like your uniforms. They need vehicles for those patrols. We need rifles. We need bullets. So at the end of the day, it's an expensive venture, and that's why you see we have been doing a lot of partnerships so that at least we can be cautioned in terms of dealing with the challenges of resources that we have. But and then the other challenge that we also face, I think, maybe the appreciation of the resource that we have as a country. When tourists come to Zimbabwe, in most cases, they're not coming here to sleep in our hotels, all those fancy hotels. They are coming here to experience something that is unique because they don't have. So when they come here to see our elephants, it's a resource which in our view is priceless. You can't just name a price to it because it's unique. You don't have it wherever you're coming from. So for our community to appreciate how important it is, so that we can move together and sustainably manage that resource. And also the other challenges that we have, especially on our part as the Wildlife Management Authority, I've mentioned the issue of resource, even the issues of manpower, the issues of research, for our scientists to do research, to find out what is happening. And in the midst of those challenges, I'm happy to say, maybe as a country, we don't have a non-species which has gone into extinct. We don't have a non-even tree plant which has gone into extinct. And despite all these challenges, we have been holding fort to make sure that at least we look after this God-given natural resource.
Okay. So, Tishinda Mbedi Farawo, as we also are going to invite Lisa into the discussion. Panisha munoona here zvatofanga kuti isusu Zimbabwe kana kuti ZimParks in terms of policy shifts so that we can attract international partnerships. Kudawo pane vamuri kutarisa kuti ava tikabata nawo mavoko ava zvingabetsera mabasa namazano amuri kuedza kuita in terms of wildlife conservation. Dzingava dziri mari dzekuti mari iwande homwe yacho inyatsodzika. We know one of the things that the transfrontier conservation areas is key on is making sure that we've got mechanisms for funding. Imim says ZimParks muri kuzviita seizvo zviri kunoona kuti homwe yenyu idzike uyezve kuti vanhu vanogara tomboti vari kuhwange vari kusangana nezhou upenyu hwavo huite seuchaita zviri nani pamusaka peizvozvi zvatiri kuita zvokuti mukadzi kwanze kufamba zvakanaka.
Thank you very much. I think over the last few years we have been getting into a lot of partnerships. We have Gonarejo, we are jointly managing Gonarejo National Park with Frankfurt Zoological Society. It has helped us in a very big way in terms of resource mobilization, vehicles and many other things which are needed for wildlife management. If you go to Matsado now, we are in partnership with African Parks. And if you go there today, if you were there maybe 5 years ago and you go there today, you get lost, because of the massive improvements that have been put into that park. The rapid response team that is there to deal with communities around Matusadona National Park. And if you go to Hwange, we are working closely with the International Fund for Animal Welfare, where they are also putting in resources for wildlife management. If you go to, we have quite a bit of the partnerships that we've entered as a way of at least pulling resources together. If you go to Manapus, which is the northern parts of the country, we have just entered into a partnership with Peace Parks Foundation, which has also been supporting transfrontier conservation areas for over the years. So all those things will make sure that at least we would have more resources into wildlife management, into conservation, into research, so that at least our children will not be told that once upon a time we used to have elephants, we used to have rhinos. And because of these efforts, we have reintroduced black rhinos into Gonarajo National Park. We have also reintroduced white rhinos into Gonarajo National Park. In the next few months, we are all going to reintroduce rhinos into Matusadona National Park. And these are the numbers that in the mid-90s, following the poaching wave which swept across the continent, the numbers had gone to as low as 200 rhinos in this country. But as I'm speaking to you now, we are now talking of plus 1,200, and we have the fourth largest rhino population in Africa, of course, after South Africa, Kenya, and Namibia. So all those efforts is because of the collaborative work that we are doing with people who have resources. And the Transfrontier Conservation Area Summit and Conference that we have had, I think the German government and European Union, they've put in, I think, more than 30 million euros just to make sure that at least the programs are well maintained, the resources well looked after. So we have a resource which can attract funding. And I think because we are also doing something right, which is helping us in a very big way. It's not only the organizations or the what we call conservation partners that I've mentioned. We have many others that we work with to make sure that our wildlife is safe.
Okay. Muri Papa says ZimParks, can you also just explain to us some of the wildlife strategies that you're using to help manage, because there's a delicate balance between conservation, ecotourism, and the community needs, also making sure that the environment in itself remains sustainable.
Thank you very much. I think as an authority we have many approaches that we use to manage wildlife, and it's delicate to balance conservation and tourism development, to also include issues of livelihood for our people and environmental sustainability. These strategies have also helped us to become a world leader in sustainable management of these resources. And we as an authority, we have strategies to deal with our habitat, to minimize habitat loss. You know, elephants, they move around destroying trees, destroying vegetation, and we have been using what we call conservation through use model, where tourism revenue benefits communities, create incentives for habitat protection, where in case of what we have been doing for years, where we have what we call community-based natural resource management, which is the signature program which has been adopted in many other countries in terms of wildlife management. And the community-based natural resource management, because in this country we have two types of tourism. Let me just, so that at least we have two types of tourism. We have what we call consumptive tourism. Consumptive tourism, that's when those people who do sport hunting, and non-consumptive tourism, where people, they normally say you shoot with the camera, they go on a game drive, they take pictures, they come back, and those. So the revenue that we get from tourism, we plow it back into conservation, we plow it back into communities where schools are built, clinics are built, roads are maintained, especially in areas where this community-based resource natural management is. I can give you just a few districts where Campfire program is working. We have Cholocho Road District Council, Wange Road District Council, Bigita Road District Council in the Southeast Lovefield, and Mbire Road District Council, where when tourists come, they go for hunting, the money is put back into Road District Council. I'm happy to say every system has its problems and weaknesses, but today, because we have refined our campfire program, where traditional leaders and communities are now having direct access and control and to decide what to do with the money. So these are some of the strategies that we are also putting in place to make sure that at least our communities benefit, because by the way, they are the ones who bear the brand of sharing borders with wildlife. When you talk of human-wildlife conflict, these are the people who can point to the graves of their relatives who have been trampled to death by elephants, who have been attacked by lions, and also others who have been injured, some with permanent disabilities. So at least in our view, they must have something to show. That's why every time, even when we go to international forums, we have been pushing to make sure that communities are involved in decision making. It doesn't help our communities when people go wherever they go, in some air-conditioned office, they make decisions on people who are in Wange without their involvement. Making decisions on behalf of people in Cholosho without their involvement. Those people know exactly what they want, and they have been living with these animals for as long as
muri ipapo isukweduko ku capital takabona pane chirongwa chedu chatinoitawo tikanoti munhu mutema wose ashamwedza nenyoka munhu wose unotenda kuti ukaona nyoka ngaiurawe ndozvatakadzidziswa ndozvakataverenga mubhaibheri atiti ushamwari ihwohwo. At the same time, our local communities should be, from what you're saying, and it's also one of your ZimParks strategies, to involve your regional, your community leadership in conservation. So how do you balance those two dynamics where we have a different cultural approach to conservation and wildlife, and versus what you are trying to do as ZimParks in conjunction with other countries?
I think our cultural background has ensured that we still have these animals today. If you are a Samanyanga, if you see an elephant, you respect the animal. You don't actually eat it. If you are a Nyati, it will be, you'll be insulting a Nyati to give him buffalo meat, because it has helped us to conserve our wildlife. If you are a Shumba totem, if you see a lion, you respect it. It has helped us in a big way in terms of preserving our wildlife. So we used to have our indigenous knowledge systems that has helped us to make sure that our elephants are in good health, in good state, the numbers are okay, the lions and all other. If you are a Nungu, if you see a Nungu, if you are a Mukanya, you see a baboon, a monkey, and these things have helped us in a big way. But coming back to the issue where we as the Parks and Wildlife Management Authority, you are not allowed to keep any wildlife product without a permit. So if you want to keep a snake at your house or a hyena, you must have a permit. If you have inherited an elephant skin or a leopard skin or a python skin from your Mbuya or from your whoever, you must register. You must have a permit to keep that. Otherwise, if you keep any of that wildlife product without a permit, you are committing a crime and you'll be arrested.
Star FM sounding good all the time. As you were listening, and do you think you and I can play some sort of role in terms of wildlife? What role do you think you can actually play to make sure that we are sustaining the way we are living, but also taking care of our wildlife? Do you think we can coexist as we're devolving to develop for Vision 2030? Do you think it is possible for us to coexist with wildlife? 0772162651. I'll be taking in your thoughts. Before we cross over to Lisa Farawo, one important issue: poaching in Zimbabwe. In fact, across Africa, tinobona vakasungwa manje nemsikawa iyo kuuraya mhuka vachitora. Some of them have like pangolin scales, all sorts of illegal activities as far as contravening the law as far as wildlife is concerned. Takata Samuel of Zimbabwe, what is the current state of poaching? Tichitarisa zhou dzedu, vanhu vanofarira kucheka nyanga dzezvipembere zvedu, what steps are you also taking to make sure that the progress you'd made as ZimParks, we know as ZimParks you'd made significant progress in anti-poaching campaigns and reducing effects of poaching. How are we sustaining that going forward as ZimParks?
Thank you very much. I think let me just zoom into what you call keystone species. That's your elephant, your rhino, your lion, your python, and your pangolin, as you've mentioned. If you do a comparative analysis over the last 4 or 5 years, we have been witnessing a positive trend in terms of poaching statistics. And for elephants, we have seen a decline of 68%, and rhino, it was a decline of 38%. And notably, this year alone, we have only lost 1 elephant and 2 rhinos to poaching. And we are, of course, strengthening our law enforcement and our anti-poaching unit. Earlier, I've spoken about 21-day extended patrol when we jointly patrol our